Well, welcome and good evening, everybody, to the Full Sail University online classes. My name is Steve Kane with the Audio Workstations class, and as always, it's a Monday night, and you know what that means. It is a remix time. It's Monday, October 16th, so we've got our week 4 lecture for you tonight, which means we are going to be doing a little bit of mixing tonight. When you go to your front screen under your class resources, remember you got those remix guidelines, and they look a little something like this. Kick it. And so all month long, man, we've been going through this, right? And week 1, we laid out the song. And week 2, we added some rhythm. And week 3, we added some melodies and some bass and pads and the music all around it. And remember, you are leaving all of the MIDI tracks in there. You are only hiding them. You are not deleting them, right? And you are only using plugins that are given to you by the Full Sail Launchbox system. So, in week 4, what we're going to do tonight is we are going to play around with our vocals, have some fun with mixing, and set up some effects, and then maybe tie the whole thing together with a little ambient sound, if you will. I wanted to cue like the seashore sound, or like a shh, or something like that. But we'll get there later on. So hope everybody had a great weekend. It has been lovely here in Central Florida. It is finally not hot as the sun. But we've been having it through. So let's have a good time tonight. Let's get down with these vocals. Before I go through, I want to thank Brian and Claude, Gerald, Ian, Jamar, James, Jamie, Jaron, Jason, Jingleheimer, Schmidt, John B, and John M, Mitch, Rich, and then Rich M as well, Seth, Terrell, and William at all here in the house. Thank you all for showing up. It's a pleasure to have you. And remember, you get the good jokes here first showing up. So you know what the difference between a hippo and a Zippo is, right? A hippo's kind of heavy. A Zippo's a little lighter. All right, now that we got that out of the way, can I use a non-Pro Tools VST and then bounce it to audio? I've got a question right up there by Jason. And so, Jason, the neat thing is Pro Tools plays WAV files. So in any other audio program, if you can bounce something down and Pro Tools can import it, it will change it. If it's not already a WAV file, it will change it to a WAV file. And you can do that. So, yes, sir, that is great. Now, let's see. Let's jump in and let's start doing some routing. I've got some great questions coming in the chat room about how to use AU, VST, and Pro Tools and things like that. And we're going to hit that afterwards because that's a little bit off topic, but I will be happy to discuss it with you. It's a really neat thing that people are doing. All right, so let's just jump into mixing. I hope you got your seat belts and flotation devices on. I guess actually that wouldn't be too good. You'd want your flotation device on and not your seatbelt, because how would, never mind. All right, so now that we are going more into mixing mode, this is when, and remember, I like to, teach while we go along here. Under my setup and my playback engine, as I start getting going and I start adding effects, they're going to start taxing my system, if you will. This is where you might want to start increasing your buffer size if you start getting errors that it can't handle it too much. And we might get that error. I don't want to do it because it delays my audio, and that's why I keep it low while we're recording and then high when we're mixing. But we're just going to see what we hear. So let's just take a listen and see what we got real quick. Remember, what I like to do is I use my memory locations to bring up all my tracks. And then we'll just start here at verse 1 where, actually I want to go a little bit before verse 1 since we put in that nice little piano. But let's listen and see what we have, and then we'll start playing with the vocals and do some effects. Now, wait a minute. Have I got something? I think I've got their original stuff. Hang on. I do. Hang on. That's not cool. That's not cool. Hang on just a minute. Their original bass. all that stuff was there right before the lead vocals. All that. Hide, make inactive. All right, so now we should be clear. Nope, there's still one thing. Oh, you know what? That was that weird little let's look at just all tracks real quick, just so we can see. So what button did I hold down to make all of these pop up all at once instead of just dragging? What button? I'll give you the hint. You got the option to see them all at one time, right? Yeah, very good, James. Good, good. All right, so what do we have going on here? That bring, bring. Is that happening? I think that's happening in the lead vocals. No, because we heard it right around here. That all looks like our stuff. Ah, that omnichord synth. There you are, you little booger. Now we should be here. And we're all good. All right, so now let's just get back to all of our tracks. And we should hear this nice little rip in, and then we got it going on. Silly little tricks. All right. So, you know what? We haven't looked at the mixing board in a while, so let's take a look at the mixing board. Remember, that's Command equals under your Windows section. And let's just kind of get, notice how I've got everybody playing right now. Let's just kind of get a good overall volume first of where we're starting with. Now, what I want to do is, first I want to also look at my master fader and make sure that we're not clipping. And I'm just going to pop that bad boy all here for right now, because I never want to clip that. And see how it's been clipping? That's probably my vocal that's making it clip here. But one of the biggest problems that people have is their session clipping out too soon. And it is usually because people tend to record with their faders near zero, but when you start mixing, it's not usually a good idea. Well, are you going to play? Let's go back here. Let's go to bars and beats. All right, so yeah, see how we're like... So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm just going to take this all group. All right, I'm going to turn this all group, and I'm just going to pull everybody down just a little bit. And I'm going to even start this thing around -10. Now I'm going to turn me back up so we can hear me. That's a better starting signal, because then as we start getting things together, we're going to start peeking out. Now, I know that this is my vocal peeking out because you see my vocals peeking out here. So, generally speaking, because our master fader, right, combines everything, usually people, unfortunately, they start with everything around zero, and then they clip it out too much, right? So I'm going to say start around -10 or so, and then that way your master fader is not going to clip. Now, I do want to put my master fader, take off our all group, and let's take our master fader, hit unity again. And our rule of thumb is we're always going to have our master fader at unity, all right? We don't want that to go on. Now, we started talking a little bit about... I don't want to go there yet. So let's start looking at our vocals, see what we got here. Actually, mixing-wise, let me get a good grasp on our drums real quick. So let's just look at my drums. So check this out. Command 5. Oh, come on. Are you teasing me? Command 5. Where is it put? Oh, you know what? I was like Command 5, and I was like, "Where's my markers window?" It put it on my other screen. I've got a running dual monitors here, and it put that. So it was coming up. But first, let's just work on the drums for a minute. All right, 3 fingers down so they all fit. And as I'm listening to these, I want to get I want to solo these guys out. Now, remember, we've got a drums group, but that's more for editing, right? So now I want to kind of get, and I can turn this on and we can solo it so it solos everybody, right? Solos everybody. Well, really? Now, I'm constantly going to be wanting to solo this and then go back and check it out, right? So what we want to do is, as I get this mix going on, and we can even get that now. So what I like to do a lot of times is go ahead and let's get our transport window up, a command 1, right? I want to make sure that I'm in loop playback, and let's go ahead and loop from our verse 1, now holding shift down to verse 2, so we can just kind of get a little loop going on. Now, you know what? I'm a little bit disturbed right now because I thought when I created this group that we were going to be able to solo one and all of them solo. But, see, because when you create your edit and mix groups, right? That's how we did this, right? And we said we wanted an edit and mix group, and we named it drums. But so let me show you something else that we're going to rather do instead. So I told you the groups are great for editing and stuff, but now as I start mixing, I'm going to want to utilize what we call subgroups. Now, these are totally different things. When I talk about a group here, I'm going to be talking about actually grouping things together. When I talk about a subgroup, I'm talking about routing. So I'm just going to get a new aux, and we're going to name this drum subgroup, drum subs. All right, and I'm going to go ahead, just keep everything. I want to go ahead and get that blue. I didn't want everybody blue, but so we'll option click on that. So we'll go there, and then let's put Steve live and that back to my green color. Okay, so now I've got, and then maybe what I'm going to do is just take my drums, since that's the subs, I'm going to make that the dark blue color. All right. Now, what I want to do, because as I'm working, all right, and so I'm thinking, I'd like a little reverb on that too. So let's get another aux track, and I'm going to bring that in here. I'm going to call this drum verb. Now, wait a minute. I don't think I did a drum verb yet. Okay. So we want to do, I want to put some reverb on this. And I'm going to go through this a little bit quicker than I did the other night, since we had already did the hardcore routing. But I will ask you, is reverb time-based or dynamic? And they're like, oh, golly, he's asking us questions again. That's right, it's a time base. So that is why I've got this extra aux there. Now, what did I tell you special about this solo button that I want to do for any time that I start getting effects tracks going on? I want to solo save them. So what can I hit there that turns that when I click that? What am I holding down as well as clicking it? Very good. Command clicking it. All right, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take all 4 of these, and now I'm going to route them to the drum subs, right? Track, drum subs. And I should have routed them at the same time, because I want that to go to the drum subs as well. But now let's go ahead and put reverb on it. So I definitely want some kick and snare going on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some reverb real quick on my drum verb track. And let's go ahead and get maybe some like a little medium room going on. And so as that's, I'm going to send in to both my kick and my snare. So check this out. We'll just go kick and snare. So I'll hold down shift, kick that. Now I'll hold down option and shift. And so now on my sends, what I'm going to do is send them to the drum verb, right? And now two of them going there. And so I can have, check it out, if I hold down shift, I can click out the other one, and now I've got my kick and my snare. So now let's see what we can get going on. And I did not solo safe my drum subs. I need to do that as well. All right, so let's get this going here. Solo, 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 solo. So we'll put some on the kick. I'm going to bring that verb up a little bit. I like that. Let's bring the snare up a little bit. So I could either bring them both together. Actually, want something a little bit longer. All right, so wait a minute. I'm not hearing this like we should. Let's get a really big reverb and make sure that we can hear this thing. We should definitely hear this. There we go. All right. There we go. I like that better. And so now let's blend it in. Now, that hat. All right, so that sounds good. I like that. Got to check it in the mix. Now, at this time, check it out. So you see how once I get my drum mix the way I like it, now I'm going to start using my sub, my drum sub. So all your drums need to be on separate parts because, and usually, you know, let's get realistically, I want to see my kick, and then my snare, and then my closed hat, then my open hat, then my verb. And that sounds good. All right. And now, does everybody understand the routing of this drum subgroup here? So, all of my drums, including the reverb for my drums, are all going out to my drum subs. And I put an aux track to look for the drum subs. And then we're sending that drum sub. But now, let's hit pause for a minute. So, everybody cool with that? All right. So, all through the month, I've been telling you about this submaster that I've been using because I wanted a way to be able to turn down the music separate from my voice and all that. So now is the time that you're going to be able to start including this into yours. Now I want to go out of mixing mode in a minute and just into teaching mode for a minute. So we've got a submaster and a master. All right. What's the difference here? All right, where's our first master? Master 1. Okay. So let's look at see what the difference. I wanna teach a minute because a lot of people, or let me ask, how many people have heard of somebody saying, I want to put a little EQ or a little compression over the entire mix, like a mastering engineer might do? Okay, so when I'm working in Nashville, I'm working at a demo studio, and most of the time, the stars, when they're done mixing, they send it to a mastering engineer, and a mastering engineer only deals with the stereo mix, and they usually just make small tweaks of compression and EQ for different mediums because they need to tweak it a little differently for a DVD and a little differently for online and a little differently and there. So I was over at Final Stage Mastering up there on Music Row, and Randy up there. He very, very awesome mastering engineer. But when Pro Tools came out, here was the big thing. It was all about the inserts. Now let's learn for a minute. Watch this. All right. Normally, when the insert comes here, I want you to look at. Let's look. You know what? I'm going to put an EQ on my voice real quick, just so you can see this. So any track. And because I'm not going to the submaster, any track I put a plug-in in. Watch this. See what I want you to see. Come on. Show me my EQ. Oh, it's popping up on my second monitor again. Sorry, y'all. This is what happens when I mix real. All right. So what I want you to notice is that as I pull my fader down, you're going to lose the signal to my voice, but you're going to notice that the signal stays in the EQ. Watch this. Check 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Does that prove that this insert is pre-fader or post-fader? It was not it was totally affected by the fader when it was not affected when I pulled the fader down, right? So is it getting its signal before the fader or after the fader? Because I pull the fader down and it does not change. All right, so it's getting its signal before the fader, which means it's pre-fader. All right, now watch this same thing when I do it on the master fader. So all I'm doing is I'm dragging it my voice, right? And now it's over here on the master fader. All right, now watch. As I pull the master fader down, watch those meters on that EQ. Check 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. So, is the master fader, are the inserts on the master fader pre or post? Very good. They're getting their signal after the fader, which means they are post. Now, this is a huge deal when it comes to mixing, and especially when it comes to this mastering thing, when people want to put a little bit of EQ on or a little bit of compression on. Let's change this. All right, so first now, let's everybody agree that mastering engineers generally put EQ and compression on a stereo mix. So something that is the entire stereo mix. They don't deal with drums separately than guitars. They don't remix it. They're dealing with the mix that the mixing engineer gave them, a stereo mix, and they're going to put a little EQ and a little compression on the final mix. But check this out. So here's EQ, and you saw that when I pull the fader down that the signal went down. You said that was post. Now, let's not just pretend, let's change this to a compressor. The way a compressor works is it has this threshold, right? Well, can you imagine if right now, let's bring this threshold down, right? So everything, or let's bring it up here, right? So nothing is getting, all right, so now all right, so you see that my signal is getting a little compressed. But now if I was trying to do a New York fade, right, and fade the song out, what's going to happen is it's going to now, and what you started seeing is that as I pulled it down, it quit getting compressed. Did everybody see that? It went from getting compressed right now in my final mix, but when I tried to fade it out, you'll see my signal drop under and quit getting compressed. Check 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Did everybody see that? All right. So this is why you do not want to put any kind of effect on the master fader except, so we always are going to leave this at unity, and I'm only going to put dither on this, and I'm going to talk about this in just a little bit longer. All right, so I'm going to put dither plugins on this only. So when I want to route, when I want to do the thing that we just said, and I want to EQ a little bit, because watch, everything's coming to my submaster, right? So now I put my EQ. If I wanted a final mastering touch, I might put a final EQ on my submaster, because that is pre-fader and not post-fader, and then maybe a little bit of compression. Now, realistically, you guys, I'm not expecting you to do this, because this is a mastering engineer's job, and most things that are going to get professionally done are going to leave the mixing engineer and go to the mastering engineer. But if you're just working by yourself and you know you're not going to send it to a mastering engineer, then this is okay for you to do. So listen. And you see how it affects the entire mix, right? So that's how people put effects on their entire mix when they're going about that. But we're not going to do that right now, because we're not going to be mastering this thing right now. So, but what I wanted to show you, though, is that I want all of my instruments, like all of my drums, including their effects, the drum verb, going to a subgroup, right? So out to some drum sub, into some subs. Now I want my drum subs going to my sub master, right? Because that's the way that I'm going to get everybody now. And so check it out. The entire mix, except my bass. I got to get my bass. Let's go get that. So where's all tracks real quick? And make sure all tracks. Isn't that funny? Watch this. It wasn't popping up here, but in my main menu it did. Point, right? And then when I go back to my mixing window, son of a gun. Aren't you funny? All right, well, you know what? Look at this. I'm just not even going to fool with that right now. So how you like me now? I did want to take that bass. They're going. So we need to send all of these to the submaster. So what two buttons do I hold down to do it at once? All right, shift and option. Good, good. So now let's go back to my story then. So everybody should, let's get all tracks. There we're good. And then let's get our submaster and our master. All right, we're going to update that. All right, so now, darn loop, where are you? Oh, I guess we never made our loop audio, but that's all right. All right, so now what have we got here? Kick, snare, open hat, loop. It's my secondary rhythms that is going around. Tambourine and shaker. Is that what you are? But you know what? We weren't seeing them right here. Tambourine and shaker. Take off that tambourine. All tracks. All right, so now tambourine and shaker. Shift and option. All right, so I'm sorry I'm being so, but I want to go through the submaster now so that it's in charge of everybody. Because the rule is we are going to leave our master fader at 0. We're not going to adjust that. We're going to leave that at 0. And then we're going to adjust everything with the submaster. And I don't want it peaking much over 8. Okay, so let's pause for routing questions. Good. All right, so we all good here. We're routing. I just want to make sure that we routed some things. Let's put some stuff on the vocals. All right, so now we got, oh, you know what? That was kind of funny. That was my Vox and not that. So let's, well, the lead Vox are here. So let's go ahead and get a little verb and delay for that. Vox, verb. Now, a lot of people like to use verbs for Voxes and everything. I'm not opposed if you want to use an adjective or an adverb or a noun. Ha 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 ha. So I've got a question that I recommend using a submaster all the time. When I work, I always do a submaster, and that way I'm able to put effects across the whole mix on a pre-fader insert instead of a post-fader insert. Does that make sense? All right, so now I want, let's set up this real quick. I'm going to since we've got verbs on C, we'll put our verb on C. We'll make a nice little air reverb there, and maybe put a nice little vocal plate or something. Little basic medium room should be fine. And then let's go to plugins D and put our delay. But actually, look, go to the delay and then D. There we go. Delay. And then maybe we're going to do something. Since we've got tempos going on, we can actually see how some of these are in like 16 dotted eighths. Let's see what a dotted eighth delay will sound like as we play with that. Now, again with this, since I'm going to keep my effects green or whatever, let's do our lead vocals. Let's send one to our verb and then send another one to the delay. So I'm going to send this one to the Vox verb. And then I'm going to send this one to the Vox delay. Now check this out. Oh, I should have named that delay. All right. So I'm not worried about it because it's the same routing there. If I want to really get, technical, I guess I could go down that and change it again to Vox delay. And that way, well, look, actually, it didn't even do that, but it's the same one. All right, so now let's, let's do this while we're at it. Let's go ahead here, and let's get a Vox sub, right? So now, let's send all of my Voxes, and we might have a background Vox too later on, to this time. Now we're going to send it to the Vox sub, and then the Vox sub gets sent where? Submaster. Very, very good. All right, so let's see what we got going on here. Look at that. So look at that. It's not getting it. So as well as your subgroups, right? Make sure that you solo safe your affects returns as well as your subgroups, right? Can you hear that? And now what I'm probably going to do, start having a little imagery here. Now it's starting to go. Now I know that you're not able to hear this because it's a mono broadcast, but in my ears I'm starting to hear something a little bit different now. Now I can still hear. All right, so now let's see what happens if I delay it any. Now, if you want to, right here's where you can just switch to the delay. And then let's go ahead and add the master and the submaster and redo our vocal memory location. So now, right, voc sub pulls all the subs. Oh, it was the delay. That when I pulled it down, we were still hearing just delay. All right. And then everything, right? I'm hearing more vox than I care to hear when I pull that vox sub down. Was there a? Oh, you know what? There was a vox wet when we originally looked, and I bet that's there. Make inactive. Look at that. See, look at that. All right, so that's good. All right. We good. Any questions up to here? Regarding the vox verb, since air reverb is adjustable, why send it through an aux? That is an awesome question. All right, so what I am gathering is that you saw that I could blend with this mix knob here. And matter of fact, I might pump that all the way up, you know, and blend it here. But I don't like to, if I treated it like a dynamic effect and put it right here, it would be very difficult for me to send other things like a background vocal to the same one. So let's do that real quick, because one of the things was maybe have a background vocal that complements it. So let's bring one in here, and let's call this BG Vox, background Vox. We're going to go ahead and route it to our Vox sub. All right. I'm going to get the same input as my microphone, and let's look at this. Let's go back to our... all right, so existing vocal stems must be original vocal leads from Indaba. Must use time-based processing on, like we just did, a reverb and a delay. Background vocals are not required, but if the song has them, great, consider making your own as well, but don't overshadow, you know, right? Don't overshadow them. So we're just gonna do this. All right, so checky 1 2 1 2. All right, it's got it. It sees me here. You got it? Here we go. I want to go make sure I'm recording here. 3 fingers down. All right, there's our, let's go look. It's got our vocals and record. There we go. Check it out, and let's go ahead and get into this verse a little bit. Here we go. I'll be the hype man. I love heaven. Oh yeah, they're sparkling in my eyes. So long. All right, so there we go. Oh, they weren't saying hey. They weren't saying heaven. They were saying hey. So let's punch that in. Check it out. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to go to quick punch. And what you're going to watch me do is punch in and punch out. So I'm going to start just by hitting play, and then I'm only going to fix that one part by punching in and then punching out. Hey there, what you doing? And now let's listen. It's because somebody said I can't hear it. It's because I left that silly I button on there, because then you'd only hear the input, right? Oh, yeah. They're sparkling in my... All right. So now we'll go here, and we got our background. So check this out. All I'm going to do is hold down Option and drag it over, right? And then send now this same background, but just a little bit differently. So check it out. See, I've got different verb for the lead and different verb for the background. Different delay for the lead, and then let's really delay the background a lot. So here we go. Hey there, what you doing? Oh yeah. All right, so everybody cool with that? So now, routing. All of my vocals, including their effects, are routed to my vocal sub. The vocal sub comes here and gets routed to the submaster. Everybody cool? All right, when I say a different delay and a different verb, you mean they use the same plugin but just different faders. Correct, because what the likelihood that I want the same amount of reverb on my, let's go back to our drum examples, right? I don't want a different amount. Let's look at both of them at the same time. So now I have two different amounts of reverb, one for my snare and one for my verb. And this is why when Richard asks, why don't we put it on the one track and use the mix knob? Because now I can have two different, let's see, we didn't add our drum reverb to our little list of things. Let's get drums. All right, and then, so now let's update our drums. Here we go, right click. Okay. So, and you know what? Let's go ahead. Let's make good habits. We also said we were putting the submaster and the master on with any group so we can see what's happening, right? Drums. Any of my memory locations. All right. So now I've got a drum submaster. I got a vocal submaster. Let's go back through and look at everything real quick now. All right. So now as I'm going through, So, let's pause for questions. All right. So, when I say the delay, use the plugin, but just in different faders. So, Jaron, we talked about that, and that way we can put different, we can send different levels through a bus to an aux track that has an effect on it. Do we have to do a submaster for everything? So, Ian, I want to just clarify real quick. We are using aux tracks to make all of our subs, whether we're making a Vox sub or a submaster. There's still an aux track. It is simply, and then there's drum sub. It's about how I'm routing them, right? So I've only got one submaster. And matter of fact, what will probably happen in the live world is something like this. Once everything's done, they're going to have, let's get everything off. They're going to have their master, whoops, everything off. Come on. They're going to have their master, their submaster, and then just their subs. And then that might be group 99. And then as I mix, and to hit pause for a second, this is what happens. Like, I told you we were working with that Dream Theater show. It was 198 tracks, right? So can you imagine the live mixer doing that? So they want to put subgroups on a lot of things. And I'm saying subgroup. I'm not meaning these groups here. I'm saying a subgroup created by an aux as much as I can, because think about metal. I might have 10 guitars. Well, once I get the mix for one set of tracks, I'll want to use a subgroup because I won't want to pull down each one of those. And then I might have a group for all my keyboards, because once I get all my vocals balanced out, then I've got a sub for them. And once I get all my drums, kind of going, I get a sub for them, right? And I usually stay very organized. I like having, actually my submaster, I'm probably gonna make that more on the red scale, so I know that one's my active one there, right? So now let's do this for a second. Let's say this is your song, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through here, and I'm going to select everybody from here to here, right? And then I'm going to select, let's get all tracks from here to here, all right? And I would just hold down Option, and we're just going to duplicate, okay? So, and then let's say right here, I want to start, let's say this is the end of your song, and you're wanting to do a fade out. This is what I would do, all right? You can take your line tool, right? I'm not lying to you. And I'll put a point there. And let's just grab it. And you have to grab it like you want it. All right? And this is a simple form of automation without doing automation. All right? Now, on this one, let's see. A submaster would typically... I've got a question on my chat roll. It says, but you leave my inserts and sends empty. On what track are you talking about? Richard, on what track? On my submaster. So remember that if I'm going to put an EQ on a submaster, you are not going to be sending that down to a mastering engineer, right? Because this is what a mastering engineer is going to do. They're going to do some kind of cool EQ and compression on the final mix for you via the submaster. Now, so Richard was asking on individual subs, when I'm on individual subs, would I put that? Well, who knows? I mean, you might want to brighten up your entire drum kit, or do something to your entire vocals. As long as you understand that if you do something here, it's going to affect all of the things routed to that. So if I was going to put a compressor here, it's going to compress all of my drums. Let's do something kind of funky. Let's go on my last plugin, since we haven't dealt with filters much. Let's play with a filter for a minute. Little wah-wah. All right, and let's listen to our drums. So let's go get our drums here. You see my master fader coming down? All right, so let's go back up here. All right, solo, safe the drum subs. There we go. So you see how it's affecting the entire drums when I put an effect on that. I forgot we had, you know what? Let's go, let's just loop 1 to 2 real quick. And Command 1, let's put it in loop playback again, just so we can... Loop playback you're going to love for mixing, so things won't run out on you. All right, so yeah. So everybody cool with that? Does that make sense, Richard? So that's why if I put a wah-wah, yeah, my dog is loving the wah-wah. He's like, I love wah-wah, because he usually wah-wah-wah-wah-wah, wah-wah-wah-wah. So I was going to tell you the Boston Terrier joke, but I already got it. I mean, we already told you that one. Yeah, we already told you that one. Do you know why you can't hear a psychologist go to the bathroom, by the way? Because the P is silent. Ha ha! All right. So, to leave inserts empty for the subviewers. I still got my fade out. My dog wants a solo. Yeah. All right. Any more questions about our routing stuff? Is everybody cool that we have routed individual instruments and their effects to subgroups? I think we require a minimum of 2 subgroups. And then I route all my subgroups to my submaster. And then I route then I just have a master fader sitting over here. Now, let's just jump over here quick, make sure we're doing all right. We did our vocals. We put some time-based processing on there, some drums and reverbs and delays. We added some background vocals. We have continued to update as we mixed our memory locations, so it is very easy to get tracks. Let's go ahead and get our master and sub. And you know what I actually might do here, and you don't, I mean, we're only requiring 2 of them, but you might want a bed group. And take all of your bed instruments, hold down Shift and Option, and send them to the bed sub. Bed sub to the sub master. All right. So we are going to solo safe our subgroup. I wanted to mix a little bit here, because I want to have maybe our piano kind of, let's just play. Sparkle Kind of have a mix there. Hey, yeah. What you think? Oh, yeah. They sparkling in my eyes. Hey, yeah. What you think? Oh, yeah. They sparkling in my eyes. All right, everybody cool with that? So now let's redo that one. Right? And then as I get my subs, I'm going to add my bed subs. And re-edit that one. Any questions about what I'm doing? I really like this way of keeping my track set. Oh, yeah. So, all right. A bus is a submaster, and a send is usually for effects. Not all tracks will be sent to an effects aux. Sent to a drone. All right. So let's talk vocabulary for a minute. All right. So John is throwing out some great questions. So when you are adding a track, we've only got a couple types of tracks, right? So when I am making subgroups, I am making them all with my aux tracks. Okay? So when you see my drum subs, see that little down arrow? That lets me know it's an aux track. My bed sub is an aux track. Even my master sub, my sub master is an aux track. Okay? Now, I route signal from one track to another track internally via a bus. Okay, a bus is like a patch cord. Now, because, and if you look at this, check it out. I mean, they're all buses here, right? And when you have them, check it out. Here's an empty one. Bus. See, we've got so many buses, and then because we just use what I told you in last week, we used a way to pick them so they automatically name themselves because we don't want to have to choose one kind of bus and then go rename it, whatever we do. All right. So I send it out a bus, and then it has to have that same bus. So see where my bus right now is labeled that this is going out to my submaster, and that is bus, and it's really bus 23, 24, 25, 26. It's really bus 27 and 28. All right, and then it's automatically renamed submaster. Then I put the other side and tell it to look for that same bus on the input. All right, so we take aux tracks, we take aux tracks, we take audio tracks, and we route them internally with buses together. All right. So does that help out? I'm coming from a PreSonus world, and there are effects channels and bus channels. And a bus means travel, correct? A bus means internal travels. So what happens is in the analog world, they used to be called aux returns, right? They used to be called aux sends and aux returns, but those words are already being used. So what the digital world had to do is say, well, an aux input would be like my aux return. And instead of calling it an aux send, we'll just call it a send. And then so we send. All right, so let's check this out. When I was over at Emerald Studios over in Nashville, they had this really cool reverb machine that they called R2D2. All right, this thing was awesome. You put vocals through this thing, man, it sounds beautiful. And they had this old thing. I mean, it's like thousands of dollars to get these backs. Well, they still want to use that in their mixes. So maybe instead of, let's see, let's go to our drums. So as well as sending our kick and our snare to the verb internally through a bus. and I sent them internally through a bus. Hang on, right? They're internally through a bus. They're the same cord, right? So now I have multiple signals going to one destination over here to my drum verb. All right, you see these two patch cords going over here, right? So two audio tracks being routed to an aux track via a bus. Then let's say the producer says, I just found R2D2. We're going to plug it in. So instead of a bus, I'm in my fancy studio and I say, you know what? I'm not using anything on 9 and 10 right now. So I go send some more signal out 9 and 10, and I rename this, and I say this goes R2D2. Whoops. Shouldn't have hit the shift button. R2D2. And then I would have to have yet another aux. And I'm just going to bring it right next door so you can see. And because he was going out 9 and 10, I would have to go then out 9 and 10, plug him into the back of R2D2 into the inputs, then plug my outputs of R2D2 into inputs 9 and 10 of my interface, which are my SPDIFs. Now, notice that I already named it R2D2, my bus. So, output, and then line and 10, 7, and 8. So that was renaming my SPDIF. So let's do that. And it's funny that it didn't rename it right there. That's kind of funny that it didn't rename it right there. Awesome. But, I hate that it doesn't show you that. So I'm going to use line 7 and 8 just so nobody gets confused. All right. So now for that outboard, and I'm going to say this is R2D2 return. All right. So now, as well as my kick being sent internally via a bus to an aux track with reverb, it is also simultaneously being sent out output 7 and 8. Then it would get plugged in to my piece of gear outside, and then come the output of that to the input of, again, another aux track, but this time, instead of its input being a bus, it's right on my interface, just like I would plug in a keyboard or a drum machine. And now you can use internal effects and external effects. Now, for your projects, we're only making you use internal effects since that's what we gave you. But does everybody understand that routing? This is a big routing lecture tonight. Everybody cool with that? I want to see some more yeses, and then I'll tell you another joke. Oh, that's funny. Everybody's like, no, I don't want the jokes. I don't want the jokes. You know what happened to the frog when he left his car on the street? It got towed. Okay, so remember, especially guys, especially on this lecture, this requires practice, practice, practice. You've already seen me forgetting to solo safe like an effects return or a subgroup. And then you're like, you solo something, you're like, why can't I hear it? There is always a reason that something isn't working. You just got to go through and look everything. So, let's see. How are we doing on our background vocals? We did that. And we did not overshadow them. We just complimented them. Atmospheres and sound effects. Pretty easy. I mean, this just kind of helps tie everything together. Get a little wind going in, a little wind going out, or traffic, or whatever. So we haven't done anything like that yet. So maybe we just get a quick little instrument track. Here's one. Um, what I'm going to do is go back to my all tracks, and then we'll put that guy in there. So let's color them green, so we know that's the effects holding everything together. And let's put, you know what I want to do? I want to do something different. Sorry, I'm changing my mind. Check this out. I want to get a mono instrument track instead of a stereo instrument track. Actually, you know what? I may have just messed up though. I'm gonna see. Because I started thinking about it. It may have given me. Oh no, we're good. We're good. No, okay, good. All right, so let's get expand. And it's damp in here. It's damp in here. It's kind of moist. It's moist. It's damp. Effects. FX. I don't know if you saw that that or not. So let's just kind of we'll just draw something in here. And actually, you know what I did? Because it's on the line tool, see how it wrote a grid? I don't want that. It did all that. So let's just undo that. Because I'm not lying to you. It'll do it every time. Oh my god. So just click and drag. And now let's go listen to the sound. Now, you're not going to hear it if these little buttons are off, right? Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And then I'm just going to option click it. Oh, sorry. um, if I had the hand, I could option click it and add it to the end. So now we've got this beautiful effect coming in and out. But what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to automate the pan, right? So I'm going to go over here and take the MIDI pan and go from one side. Now, this is where I want the line tool, though. I want to go from here and then go like, oh, come on now. I want to go like that. So now we've got all right. So now we got some mono, and I wanted to do that. The reason I wanted to do mono is so you could hear the mono effect going from side to side, because when it's harder to hear a stereo effect, and got to do it. All right, so look, we did a little volume automation. We did a little panning automation. Because check this out as you go through. I know we talked about this, but this part isn't written down straight up here. So I want to just kind of jump down to show you what we've been doing. Automation is used on volume, pan, and a plugin of my choice. Automation should be displayed. So when you turn it in, and I'm going to talk about this, don't go back. Let me see it easily so I know what you automated, right? So they're looking for that. We're also going to be saying that we want a minimum of 2 edit mix groups. Now, these are the ones that are down here, right, when we made our groups, and that's by going up into this menu. Everybody cool with that? And then on this point, a minimum of 2 subgroups are being used. That's when I'm talking about creating aux tracks and routing signals to them so you can control all the drums with one fader, or all the vocals with one fader, or all the bed tracks with one fader. And you just need 2 of those. Okay? So on the automation points that we were talking about, or not automation points, on the mixing points we were talking about, I want this thing starting up by measure 3. Dynamic plugins used, like EQs, filters, compressors, some time-based things like some reverbs, some delays. Make sure you solo safe them. And while we're talking about solo safing, make sure you solo safe your subgroups as well. Okay? Make sure you label everything properly. All right? So, let's hit save. And you know what I should have probably have done is another save as this point as I start getting my mix going on. So, now, some people say, well, do I have to use the mixing board and that? No, you don't have to use that. You can do everything here with these volumes, with these pans. Matter of fact, you can do everything in this edit window that you can in this mix window. Matter of fact, the mix window is a little bit less impressive because I can't edit over here. At least here, while I'm mixing and moving stuff around, I can still edit. So a lot of people move them to 2 different windows. And so we'll go there. And so if you had missed the Thursday week 3 archive, that's where we go over the routing of the effects and the solo safing and all that in slow detail. Just to let you know, if you felt like tonight was a little bit fast when I was going on that, we covered that in Thursday week 3. Just so you know that. Just so you know, so you know. My friend came up to me the other day and he's like, nothing rhymes with orange. I said, no, it doesn't. All right. That one's a big laugh. That one's getting LAMAOs and ROLFs and all that kind of stuff. Let's see. All right, so what do we want to do now? We're looking at this. I'm going to go over on Thursday. I'm going to go over in this whole project again, top to bottom, hit every single point very quickly. And then on Thursday, we're going to run through it quickly and making the whole entire. I'm just going to do like 2 bars to get everything out. And then we're really going to talk about how to prepare for the session, getting your bounce set up, getting your dither set up, and all that kind of stuff, and making sure that you understand how to deliver it properly. Because if you don't share it properly and copy the link, it's not going to be graded right. So let's go back and talk about just a few things here. All right. As you are getting into mixing, one of the things that I'll just tell you a story for a second. The thing that surprised me the most when I watched a professional mix in Nashville, right? And I'm sitting here, and it was Steve Marcantonio. He was mixing a Vince Gill album, and he's in there, and I could not believe how much he would solo and then unsolo and solo and unsolo. And what happens is you get in this mode of like, I'm going to solo my drums, and as long as you understand that every frequency affects every other frequency. It's like waves in the ocean. When one wave goes out and another one's coming in and they hit each other, they affect each other, right? So if I tweak out the high end of my loop, don't you think, and I put an EQ on the high end of my loop, don't you think it will affect the other instruments as well and how they interact? Right? So what I don't want you to do is just sit here and let's get a little loop going so we can hear this. So I just shift clicked it between my two memory locations. So now I'm going to solo my loop. And let's say if I put an EQ on before it. All right, so we got a little EQ on there, and remember that you want to put it after the instrument, not before it, right? If it's before it, you don't hear any change, right? Because it's before. All right, and now we can start hearing. But now listen, then we get out of solo. And maybe that little sound. That's what I'm wanting to hear a little bit. Maybe that snare is cracking a little bit too heavy. So I'll get it to cut through with frequency. And then I'll pull it down a little bit. Oh, that filter is hearing it too, yeah. Okay, so more cowbell. So I was really surprised how much they would solo and unsolo and see how things, because once you tweak it out like an EQ or a compressor and then you put it back in the mix, it might sound good soloed, but then it might affect something else and muddy up something, especially when you're doing bass frequencies and you're messing around with a kick drum or a bass guitar. You really need to check out what you do to one and how it affects the other, and going back and forth between soloing and getting your entire mix down. So now the other thing that I want to start doing now, I want to talk a little bit about these other master faders. When some people say like, dude, how many master faders have you got? I'm going to put a pause on mixing for a second. All right. So let's do something else real quick. I'm going to do and I'm going to back up. We're going to pause on mixing for a second, and we're going to talk about working with people. So I'm going to get sends F through J up. Now, because sends A through E, I usually go for effects, right? But check this out. When I get all my tracks up here, and then I'm going to get all of them. So I'm going to hold down Option. We're going to get all of them, right? Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to exclude my master. I'm going to exclude my submaster. And then this would be a great thing, like if you were thinking about this as like a studio mic in here. So check it out, Shift and Option. Now I'm going to send them all out. Let's pretend output 5 and 6 has got, so now I I go out of output 5 and 6 on my interface, and I plug it into a headphone amp, and I send it to my musicians, right? Watch this. I command click, right? And so now I start setting up a headphone mix with the exact things. And as you get into HD, because remember, when the singer comes in, they want to hear more vocals. When the string player comes in, they want to hear more strings. And you set everybody up 5 and 6. And then we bring Master Fader 2 in. And now Master Fader 2, come on. Let's get persnickety now. So now this one is going to be the control room master. This one is going to be my headphone master. Right? And if I put an EQ overall, if I needed an overall EQ on my entire song, or when I want one, yes, that's what I put there right on my submaster. You see that? Notice the only thing on my master fader is dither. And now check it out. For my master 2, I have that control 5 and 6. And now when the singer says turn my headphones up or down, I've got my headphone master with their individual headphone mix that we used with Ascend. An in-ear mix. That's exactly what I'm creating. And this works for whether you're using a live scenario and you're sending to monitors. If you work in some places now, they've got these really cool monitoring systems where I can send just out a digital cord, boom, and have everybody turn up in their own box. Or if I had the traditional aux out and monitor wedges, I can do it just like that, and that's how I would create a monitor mix as well. And then when they need the whole mix up or down, right? So maybe I needed another one. I want you to just think, because I've got 5 masters. Maybe so I created a headphone mix with one of them. Maybe I create. Maybe I'm going to send out to another computer and use it for streaming over the internet. So maybe we send out another to somewhere else, right? And I create the exact mix that I want there. Maybe you're in a wedding or something, or a church or something, and it's Christmas or Easter or a wedding of big thing, and they have an overflow room, and so you set up another monitor, like a powered monitor or something. You plug out another output, and then you send those to your overflow room. Whoops. I swear I held down Shift and Option. We did that. Come on. We said we send everybody out. We send that same exact mix out to the overflow rooms. So remember, Ascend just sends it out somewhere. You determine whether you are sending it out of the entire system to go wherever you want it to go in the whole wide world. Maybe a recording device, maybe a camera, maybe somebody's there with a video camera and says, hey, can you give me a feed off of your Pro Tools? Maybe they say, can you give me an in-ear mix or a monitor mix on stage? Maybe ESPN is there and they want a broadcast mix, right? So you've got 10 different places. A lot of people just think that sends are only with effects, and usually they are. But I want you to think bigger, and I want you to think that it just means you can send something anywhere, right? So, just kind of cool stuff. All right, so I'm hitting Command, by the way, to give me what I call baby fader view. All right, you can click on them, and that's called the output window as you're doing that. But don't click them off, right? If you click them off, they'll get mad at you. Get it? Click me off. All right. So, yeah, that was a pretty lame joke there. I was going to do a visual joke, but that doesn't really work well on a podcast. So, questions. Let's pause for questions. So as you're putting your mix together, we want to see at least 2 dynamic effects. We want to see at least 2 time-based effects. We want to see at least 2 groups for more for editing purposes. Honestly, that's where you're seeing more. And then at least 2 subgroups that you created with aux tracks. Let's see, huh? Let's go on and see about this. When you're doing the vocals, make sure if you're gonna do a background vocal that it doesn't overlead the main artist. They don't like that. That first mix you did for a single person, right? Ian, I don't understand that. As like I was working tonight, and oh yeah. So like when I was sending out a signal to line 5 and 6, more than likely that is only going to go. Actually, no. What I do at my house, I've got. I wish I could show you a little. Well, I'm going to show you this way. I've got a little headphone amp box. Headphone amp. And I picked it up for like $50. This one, yeah, it looks kind of like this guy, Samsung. This little guy. Okay, and so I plug in out, and it's got a stereo input. All right, and then so I plug in, and then I get 4 headphone feeds out the other side, so I can have 4 musicians getting that. So out of 5 and 6, I go out 5 and 6 out of my system, right, and then I go right into that headphone amp, and then 4 people can actually get their headphone mix. So it's kind of cool that way. Matter of fact, if let's see, I'll try to show you a real world example here. Steve Kane Productions. Go like it now. Now I'm going to show you a picture here. Yes, that's the one. Yes, that's the one. All right, so that's where I'm actually sitting right now. Isn't that weird? All right, well, let's go look at these photos, though. And I'll show you some recordings where we actually had the headphone amp going on. All right, so see how these 4 people are listening or on that. So I've got all 4 headphone vocals. That's this VR camera, by the way. Going in, and you can't see it, but there's that headphone box, that Samson headphone amp right on the floor. So they each get 4 mixes right there, right out of that Samson mix. And I fed it with 1 going out, 1 stereo here. Oh, yeah, I know. I got all kinds of stuff. No, just shameless plugs. No advertisements, just shameless plugs. Steve Kane Productions. So that's how I created the in-ear. So it does not have to be just for one person, but, and who asked that? But it was, Ian asked that. It is 1 mix only. So they all have to agree that that's what they want to hear. When these girls, none of them were like, I want to hear me louder than the other. That didn't work. So, and they didn't sound like that. It was awesome. All right, so Young Kane, I like that. I tried to go by DJ Judo, but that name was already taken, and I didn't want to have to make him tap out. I do not like scuba diving, man. It messes with my ears. DJ Jiu-Jitsu is a little bit too long, so I couldn't do that. All right, so let's see. Other mixing things. I think I'm about ready to just turn it over to some questions now. And because I believe that we have covered everything that we were supposed to as far as getting this going. We did our little ambience. And then the things that I did a little bit extra that aren't actually, they're not extra that I did. They are in here, but they were only in the rubric. So I wanted to make sure that you got that we did some automation by drawing in some volume or pan and that kind of stuff. And then, by the way, I also showed you how to do some of that stuff on the organ and stuff. Remember when we had TJ Sugarcane? I like that. We actually, when I was growing up, I lived on a farm that was named Raisin Cane Ranch out here in Florida. Pretty funny. The edit groups and the subgroups. So even though that you're, as you're looking up here, there's not really directions on doing that. I don't want you to forget about that. All right, forget about it. Forget about it. Don't forget to leave all of your MIDI tracks in the session. Please make sure you are commenting if you are doing other things, like I didn't record a bass, it was live or whatever, or 2 automation lanes here so I know what to look for. Remember when we were talking about you got to automate a plugin, that kind of stuff. So, sugar cane, I like it. I'm sweet. That's sweet. I make the sweet beats like sugar cane. Flowing in the rain, it'll make. Never mind. I almost got bad there for a second. I did not have my instrument in the first choice to click expand to. It was my second MIDI option, which only gave me a click to option. All right, so Candace is experiencing this plugin, which is the problem that I thought I was going to have. Remember when I did my effects? My effect sound. Well, let's just go look at any of these. So Candace, check this out. If I have a stereo instrument track, let's not use the organ. Let's use a new one. There's my effect. Let's go look at my effects because that's what we did. And then let's look at instrument 10. Now, I want you to notice there's the difference. You see the difference in the meters. All right. One has 1 meter and one has 2 meters, right? That is telling me that there is a stereo track versus a mono track. That is different than mono plugins and stereo plugins. So watch this. On the stereo track, all of my multi-channel plugins are there. But only on the mono plugins can I get my click, right? But when I went to my, wait a minute here, mono plugin, instrument, see, I've only got the click because I'm on a stereo track looking for a mono plugin, and that doesn't work. But check it out. A mono track. So now see our effects track. So the mono track, this time when I went to mono instrument, it worked because I wasn't trying to go from mono down to stereo. All right, so Candace, that's your problem when you did that, and that's why I said, hey, I almost set myself up for failure when I wanted to get that rain, because I knew if I put the expand right here and I tried it, because look at this, I didn't want to have to pan two pans, right? When I look at that bigger, I've got pan left and pan right, and I didn't want to have to automate 2 different pans. I wanted to automate just a single pan. So that's why I decided to do a mono track, right? Mono track, mono pan. Stereo track, stereo pan, right? So on a stereo track, you can only put stereo plugins. On a mono track, then I can put all of those there. I hope that answers your question. And then, so John says, so can we use third-party plugins as long as we bounce them to audio? John, I will say yes, but that does not exclude you from using the plugins that we are going to be looking for. You can't say that when I'm asking for dynamic plugins that you flew some audio in from an external dynamic plugin. I want to see an actual dynamic plugin like this EQ 7-band from the one we gave you. And then if you decide to put something in of your own and fly it in, you can say something like, this came from, blah, blah, blah plugin, right? But we do need you to at least use the plugins that we gave you. I hope that makes sense, John. Where do you want those comments? There are lots of options. So, Richard, I'm talking about a comment if it is going to be something that is a little bit, well, let's just look through here. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. We want most everything created by MIDI, right? And you must leave your MIDI tracks. Even if you record them down as audio, you have to leave your MIDI tracks. All right. So when you're doing that, though, we've had some people in the past say, like, dude, I actually play bass. I'd love to actually grab my Rickenbacker out. And so if you're going to record something like that where we're expecting a MIDI track, but you record it, if we're something out of the norm, that's when I want you to say recorded with Ibanez, whatever an Ibanez thing, and a crate amp or whatever. Cool. Or if one of your, instead of saying one automation lane and I'm counting and I'm looking for three, you could say something like this has two automation lanes. Automation lanes, please don't miss. Now, Richard, in the real world, you are writing things down that you want to remember about the session, like close mic, 57, far, far. Look at me hitting return, because I'm hitting. Yeah. Far is a U87. And then mid is whatever, 414. Cool. 421 on toms. Yeah, people love those things. So let's see. I think I about covered everything that I want to cover tonight. So let's knock out any last questions here, and then I'm going to stop the archive, and then we'll go about our business for this last 10 or 15 minutes as we go. What I meant was, can I use, for example, Omnisphere 2 for my main lead and bounce it to audio? Nothing as far as dynamics, really. If you're going to use, well, no, on those instruments, that's where he was really wanting, the course director was really wanting to stress that you only use the virtual instruments and Pro Tools that we gave you for that package, because we want to be able to open it up and see what you've done. We don't want to just listen to the audio, okay? And that way we can see your work rather than just an audio thing. I hope that makes sense, John. Good. Regarding dynamic effects, the channel strip has both EQ and compression. Does that work for your stuff? Yeah, honestly, I've got people that love that plugin, that use it a lot on the channel strip. They just absolutely love this, and the reason why is I forget what console they've routed off of that. But on an analog console, you've got all your pad, preamp, trim, and effects like your compressor and gates and EQs almost on every single channel. So that's why they call that channel strip, because it's a channel strip out of like one of those old Neves or the SSLs or something like that has all three of those sections in it. It has an EQ section, a filter section, or an EQ section, a compressor section, and a expander sometimes, a sidechain sometimes. The mini grand instrument doesn't work for me. Do you perhaps know why it might be? If you can send me a screenshot, that will help. A lot of times, the biggest thing that people are doing is not routing them. A lot of times, if you put it in, it routes it automatically. When you put in any instrument track. But so just make sure that it's routed properly to the correct channel. A lot of times, if you have more than one instrument, then if it's just giving you beeps, yeah, same with me, it would make funny noise. Interesting. That's really interesting. I've got several people saying that it's not working for either of them. My default tech solution when I am not getting proper results is I just take it off there and I reinstall it, and to see if that works. So I want to encourage everybody. Remember my expectations. I don't expect you to perfectly understand everything after just watching it this first time. I expect you to watch this several times as you're using your own Pro Tool sessions and pausing and that kind of stuff. Going back and forth and trying out the things that I am doing. And then if you don't get it after a time or two, I fully expect you to reach out to whoever your instructor is and make sure that you get a good explanation. So with that being said, I look forward to coming at you next Thursday, or this coming Thursday, I should say. We're going to do a wrap-up of this and then really talk about our session delivery. So I want to thank Brian, Candace, Claude, Denise, Gerald, Ian, James, Jaron, John, Mitch, Paul, Richard C. and Richard M., Seth, Stephen, Terrell, Timothy, and William. I'm going to hang around after class, but thanks for being here with this archive. Guys, I'll see you next Thursday. I'm Steve. Peace out.